What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Optimize You. We are the podcast helping you optimize every single area of your life, from your health to your nutrition, to your mindset, to your identity, to your fitness, literally everything. Trying to get you to be the best version of yourself every single week. And today we got a great one. We're going to be talking all about happiness, basically everything that we know about happiness. Try to get you into a place where you can experience more joy, happiness, bliss on a regular basis, because I think that's what life's all about. But first off, what is going on, my guy? What's going on, Matt?
What's up, brother? Happy to be back. I know I feel like we've been missing a little bit. Maybe that was a couple weeks ago, but we're back, man. And I'm happy to be back, and I'm excited to be talking about happiness today. I think this is a huge topic, and the second you told me that we were going to be talking about this one today, I immediately had to self-assess and see where my own mindset was at. So yeah, man, let's jam on it. I'm ready if you are.
I love it, dude. Well, what did you come up with, when you were kind of self-assessing?
Yeah. So when I've been really trying to dig in deeper lately, and you and I have both been huge fans of meditation. And even when I'm not meditating, I try to spend more time during my day as I'm going up through my day to monitor and self-aware. Not so much to the point where I'm checking in on myself every hour. And maybe that could be a new goal for me. But frequently I've been using my meals as a time to do it, because I know that those times aren't going to change or deviate too much from a day-to-day basis. But as I'm making my meals, I've been using that as an opportunity to kind of assess my level of happiness, whether I was doing something from work, whether I had a tough conversation with somebody, whether something super awesome happened. I try to really just reflect on what has happened so far in that day. And if something is within my control that I feel like I can shift going forward, I'm like, okay, that's in my immediate control. If my level of happiness right now isn't up to par or up to the standard that I feel like it should, to where I feel like I'm enjoying myself on my day-to-day basis, what can I change? What's in my control? Is there a way that maybe I need to get outside more? Maybe I need to put myself in a position to talk to people who are more positive versus somebody who is, exposing the victim mentality all the time. Maybe I'm just surrounding myself around that a little too much. And maybe I need to shift who I talk to in the next couple hours, right? Little things like that, where I've been conscious and trying to focus on where is my attention going, and assessing that, because ultimately our beliefs and what we think and what's going on in our head will dictate and can dictate our happiness or the lack thereof. So for me, I'm just really trying to assess myself and be completely unbiased, and almost take myself out of my own body and look at myself and go, okay, how was that last couple hours? How was your morning? Did I just drag ass through my workout? Was I being short, or maybe not as up to par with my workout buddy in conversation? Was I not prioritizing the things and making a list of the stuff that I needed to do for the day? And what was my ability to execute on that? And is it stuff that I actually enjoy? Is it bringing me back to happy? Am I just doing stuff to check the boxes, or am I setting myself up to be happy during the day? Because I think that's what it's about. And it's cool that we always have quarterly meetings with our coach. And so one thing that I conversated with him was what I really wanted to focus on this quarter is bringing back the meaning of, he put it in this word, in this verbiage. He said, I want you to envision your day and your ideal day and what you want that to look like, and true happiness. What does a perfect day look like for you? And then how do you integrate and weave your business into that? And I was like, oh man, I always put those backwards, right? I always go, okay, let me just crush work, and then hopefully today's going to be a good day. And I'll kind of keep my fingers crossed, and hopefully I'll be happy today, right? Versus he's be happy, envision this picture and scenario that, if it were to be perfect, right? Envision that. And then how does your business and the things that go along with your business integrate into that? How do the daily activities integrate into that? How are you going to be able to shape and mold that? And for me, when I'm in that perspective, it's really cool. It's really fun. Remembering to be in that mindset, I think, is my biggest challenge, right? Because you and I were talking about it before. It's I find myself in the day-to-day and kind of going through the motions sometimes. And I think we all do it. But man, as soon as I can remember kind of that North Star and what makes me happy and my perfect scenario, and keep visualizing that and marinating on it in my brain, every action that I do during the day seems to be automatically like congruent and fluid with that. And when I'm not, it's not. And it's very obvious and I can tell. I don't know if you experience that. Do you feel that at all, or have you experienced that?
Oh, for sure, man. No, I think that and I love everything you're saying about how you really control what you can, right? And setting up your day in the best way possible. I don't do enough of that myself. It's kind of always like, oh, these are the work things that need to get done. And then like, if we have time, we'll do fun things, right? Like, and like, if we have time, we'll do that. And I still try to, like, I do practice what I preach by like putting fun stuff in, even daily. Like I've just reading continues to grow on me. And I do that. That's a 30 minutes a day minimum for me. That's one of my non-negotiables, like golf.
Reading, you said?
Reading. Yeah. I just like, it continues to grow on me. I'm like, I love doing this. And it fuels me. Going on walks is something that I do cherish as well, where like it centers me, especially in nature. You know, there's nature out here, like a lot of good nature centers me. And, you know, there's a lot of good things I do, but, you know, I love that you talked about control and what you can. And I think that a lot of it also comes down for me to presence, right? Like if you're present, I don't think you can be happy, like without being fully present, right? Like with the experience in front of you. And this has been something that I've been working on recently. And I didn't tell you this because we haven't talked a lot, but, I kind of shifted my meditations a little bit, like to where I do them every day. I've kind of shifted it to like a morning and evening one where I do 15 to 30 minutes in the morning, 15 to 30 minutes in the evening, but it's all around presence, practicing presence, you know, it's mindfulness, right? It's like counting up from 1 to 20, my breaths, right? Like 1, 2, you know, 1 in, like out 1, 2 in, out 2, up to 20. Cause then you can like, if you go past 20, basically I got this from Michael Singer, and he says like, go up to 20, because if you find yourself at 30, you'll know your mind drifted, right? And you're not present anymore. Because then like with the counting, you'll be present. And you go back down to 1 and 2, 3, 4, up to 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 20. And I found that that's brought me so much more presence throughout the day of like making that my focus, my meditation. Like, you know what, I'm going to just give myself present. And then with the presence, I found myself experiencing the moments in front of me on a heavier basis, like feeling a lot more of it. And I think that's one of almost the goals of life, really, is like, how present can you be with the person in front of you? How present can you be with this moment on your walk? Whereas opposed to like, I find myself in the past so up inside my head, right? Like where it's like, it's just going around. It's talking about, oh, this client that didn't message me back, or this, you know, this whole scenario from 5 weeks ago where it was like, oh, this came back in my head. Like, why didn't they do this? Like, why, you know, like, you know, kind of going through all of what our mind tells us on a regular basis, and I'm not present. And so I found that kind of putting these almost mindfulness meditations throughout the day has really started to get me more into that present moment. And I've been starting to feel more energy, like just like right here, right in my chest. And another thing that I meant to say is like, and we can go deeper into that because this has been something I've been digging into the last week.
Yeah, I got some questions on that.
My life started to change, like from this stuff. And it's a lot to deal with. I owe a lot to it, to Michael Singer. He wrote the book Untethered Soul. He wrote the book Surrender Experiment. I took his course as well. He has like it's almost like a lecture, right? He has like 8 lectures almost, like helping you go like 100 times deeper into his books, right? It's like, it's the stuff that I'm obsessed with. But one thing I wanted to say is that I think gratitude comes really heavily to mind when it comes to happiness for me. And what I've also realized recently is like, okay, we're a miracle, right? I don't think anybody tells you enough, but like the fact that we're here is a miracle. You kind of look back to it. I think that, you know, Mel Robbins says 1 in 400 trillion odds. And I don't know how the fuck they you know, get those odds. Maybe it's right, maybe it's not right. Either way, it's really high, because if you think about how far back like perfection had to go for you to get here, right? Like you go back 30 generations, like on both sides of your parents, it all had to work out perfectly for the perfect people to be born, to come down to your parents, you know, having sex, and that, you know, the perfect sperm and egg meeting that created you. Like when you start to think of it that way, right? Like how can you not enjoy the day? Like, it's like, you know what, like you talk about, you know, I woke up, you do your thank you, like I have air in my lungs. I'm grateful. I think when you start to put it into that small of a perspective to where it's like, wait, I've been sitting here for 29 years of my life, like feeling sorry for myself when it's a complete and utter gift that I'm able to wake up this morning and go out and enjoy my life and experience this whole world from like it. Our minds are insane, dude. Like they're so powerful. We can experience like a wide range of emotions. Like there's a million things that we should be grateful for. And yet so many of us just sleepwalk through life, like feeling sorry for ourselves because we don't feel good or because this person did this or because of that. And it just takes away from everything. And so like that's a little rant, but I wanted to say that towards the top of this because I think that like that's a realization I've had recently is just like how much of a miracle it is that we're here, how much of a miracle it is that this moment's in front of you. Like there's no other person that's going to experience whatever moment. Like right now, this podcast, no other person is going to experience it through your eyes or through my eyes, right? Like we're experiencing it in completely different ways. And nobody else is going to experience this. Like we're the only person in eternity ever that's going to experience this. And yet so many people, they're so wrapped up in this fucking thing up here, this mind that they're not present and they're not actually enjoying this moment and learning from it because they're here, but they're not here. They're up here. They're here. They're 3 weeks ago, right? They're in like what the fuck happened to them 3 weeks ago that they still can't get past. And I'm not saying this from a place of like, I'm better than anybody because I'm not. I'm still working through this shit. I'm just coming from a place of like, maybe this can get through to somebody to have that realization of, oh, fuck, I've been doing that same thing that Alex was just doing. And now maybe I can live my life fully and be a little more happy.
Yeah, no, I think it's cool. And that's the idea of the pod, right? Is to share our experiences.
Yeah.
Even, of course, we're going to share our own personal experiences, but experiences that we have with clients because we have the opportunity to work with other people too and see the scenarios that they go through and how we help them get through it. It's funny. It's like I'm such a better coach than I am a self-assessor of like being able to coach myself. That's why we have coaches, right? You and I both have coaches. We constantly have mentors and people that we look up to and seek, and we seek each other for advice, right? And I think it's one of those things where I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, I have such a better ability to assess and coach somebody and help them through something way easier than I do myself. And you talked about presence, and I was trying to think of the word, I picture it as like we have this certain amount of energy on a daily basis. And I think of it as like a capacity or levels. And you said the word presence, and I'm like, man, that's what it is. Because the more present you can be, the more you're dictating and being a distributor of where you choose your energy to go for the day. So if you're somebody that kind of goes through the motions, or you've been in those shoes where you're like, fuck, I can't get anything right. Like everything shitty is happening to me today, right? I got in a rear end fender bender, right? I'm late to work. My boss is throwing something on me that, at the end of the day when I'm supposed to get my workout in, so I can't get my workout in. And then they're inviting me to lunch and I got to go make a shitty decision. Like it feels like nothing's hitting and I feel like that too, right? Those are scenarios that my clients have brought up to me. But when I feel like that, it's exactly to your point. It's like, how can you assess and be present in the moment and be thankful for the situation that you do have? Because there's somebody out there that would kill to be in your shoes right now, despite you having a quote unquote shitty day, right? Yeah. Or a bad day.
It's the best day ever in their situation, right? Like,
yeah, right.
They get to eat. Like they got like the lunch thing. That's a gift for some people,
yeah.
Right? And it should be a gift for all of us, really. Like when you think about it, right? We're not guaranteed another day.
It's like the fact that you got invited to lunch, right? By somebody. There's people out there that are like dwelling in self-pity that like, super extreme to the point of, so introverted, they get afraid to talk to people, but they're seeking that, but they're battling their own personality and insecurities, or maybe they have a disability where they can't, but they really seek that attention and camaraderie with people. And like, we're sitting here complaining and bitching that we got invited to lunch. You know what I mean? So it's like, dude, I think it's all perspective. Yeah, it's all perspective, right? It's like, so to your point, I was trying to think of the word. I was like, what is that? Maybe it's, we've talked conscious before, but I like the word presence that you were bringing up, because it's so real. You talked about counting from 1 up to 20 to and being aware of your breaths.
Yeah.
But the second you go past that, it's so easy how our mind works. You start to drift, right? We said there's people that are probably listening to this pod right now where we said things that were super intriguing and super interesting. And then for a second they zoned out because they got a text message from their phone. They watched their phone or something, right? Like, and so they missed a 10, 15, 2-minute section, right? And that's just how our brains work. You're not going to be completely present 100% of the time. But I think the more conscious we choose to be of it, and whether it's, for me, like I said, I use my meal times. I think you're pretty strict on like what times you meditate during the day, which are designated times for you to be present in your day. I think whatever it is for the individual, if you set some time aside to be present at some point during the day, you and I would probably suggest multiple times, but even if it was just once, I think you can see and assess where your bowl or your pool of energy is going for that day. And it's like, am I in control of it? Or has it just been rapid fire, like shotgun spray all over the place? And I'm getting pulled left and right and dictated. I'm experiencing all these kind of crazy emotions and I feel like I have no control. It's like, that's a perfect time to just woosah, just take some time to yourself, man. Like,
and it could be 5 seconds, right?
It could be 5 seconds.
You just like close your eyes and then do what I just talked about. Count to 5 with your breaths, right? Take 5 breaths with counting each, the in breath, the out breath, the in breath, the out breath, up to 5, and then open your eyes. You're going to be present finally. And you could do that throughout the day. And what I just realized through doing that a little more often and making that the focus of my meditations is that like I am like coming more present. And I do it in the morning and I do it in the evening, right before I go to bed. It's almost like that reminder too, as I'm trying to focus on another thing around just happiness, like letting go of everything. Like I think that there's one thing I've realized, and I think we've probably talked about this, everybody does this, right? Is everything in my life has been about happiness. Like this podcast, like everything in my life has been about experiencing happiness, experiencing joy. And I would argue that everything in anybody's life is about that. You get that taste, right? Like when you're young, you get that taste and you're kind of like a blank canvas when you're born, but then all of this stuff happens, right? All this shit happens in your life and then it kind of gets fucked up. And then all of a sudden, like the moments of happiness are less and less. Right. And I've experienced that tons and tons. But what I realize is that the problem isn't out there. Right. But all of us go out there for the answer. Right. We think that, okay, when I get more friends, I'll be happy. Oh, you know what? Like maybe that void is that I don't have a spouse. Like I'm going to go get a spouse. That's going to make me happy. Or, have this business. Like if I can make this much money, then that'll do it. That'll get me happy. Like, and all these different things that we consistently go towards to try to increase that happiness when maybe you feel that like achievement happiness at the end of that tunnel, right? Or like you feel that love of like the honeymoon phase with this girl that you're going out with, that you're trying to fill this void with. And all of this stuff happens, but eventually you end up back where you were. And I'd argue worse because you did another thing that didn't work. Right. And so now you're like, well, what do I do? Right. You start to you have less and less confidence that you can actually achieve this state. When what I've come to realize also from this course is that, and from his books, Michael Singer's books, is that it's, the internal problem. Like we can't solve an external problem we can't solve an internal problem with an external solution, right? It's just not going to happen. I actually made this like stupid analogy that it's like trying to fix your TV by drinking a beer. Like that, like that doesn't make any sense at all, but that's kind of the point, right? Like that's it. Like we try to fix this internal problem with an external solution. And what happens is it continues to make us worse and worse and worse. And so like what his solution is like letting go. It's like we have all these blockages inside of us because throughout our life, we've had tons and tons of experiences, right? And we've had certain experiences that we resisted because we couldn't handle them, right? They were too hard. Maybe a death in the family, maybe your boss yelling at you, maybe, whatever it may be that was super hard for you to deal with. It brought up tough emotions. It was difficult. So you pushed it down, you resisted, you didn't want to feel it. On the other side of the coin, maybe you achieved something huge in your life. Like for me, like would have been getting drafted, right? And then you cling on to that and you're like, I want to feel this forever, right? And then everything is searching for that feeling again, right? And so you have these things, they're stored in your body, and they block the flow of energy. Like energy wants to flow up. It wants to flow. Like if you know what chakras are, like it wants to flow through your chakras and it wants to flow out your heart. Right. And that's pretty deep. Some people we might lose on that. But the big thing is like that these things are almost like blockages inside of you that block the flow of energy up. And so like if you can remove these things by letting go of the parts of yourself as they come up throughout the day, like maybe you're in traffic and you start feeling yourself and your mind starts talking to like, oh, fuck this guy. Like he's going 10 under, like blah, 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 blah. Like letting go and just breathing, relaxing, relaxing. Right. And then like allowing yourself to feel those and allow yourself like to feel everything and allow yourself to just relax inside of it and not resist it. And then you start to basically unblock yourself and you start to feel more energy. And so I've been doing this for almost a week and it is crazy like how much more energy I feel right here in my heart, because it's like I'm starting to just relax throughout the day and I'm starting to let go of it and I'm starting to focus on, and it creates more presence because your mind's not always going in a million different places.
Totally,
it's going to happen.
And
it's
like,
not easy.
Yeah, it's going to happen, guaranteed. And it happens to everybody, and your ability to self-assess and like take that time, like Alex said, dude, it could be a couple minutes, like just take that. It could be a couple seconds. But those of you that are listening or somebody that's listening and is kind of like, I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure if I believe that. That was me. Like if you find yourself, being ego driven or your ego tends to get in the way of things, you're like, oh, that kind of sounds phony. Like, I don't think that would work. Like, I'm just like and this is like the bull type mentalities, right? That are very aggro, like aggressive, super, super fast go-getters, like go with everything. If that's you, because that was me too. And I first like was introduced to this stuff and that's why I'm speaking to these people, because that was me until I was like, you know what, what's the other side of the coin? And saying, fuck this is stupid. Like, I'll just figure it out and I'll go about my day and I'll just crush everything and be really good at everything. And then happiness will just come all of a sudden because I'm productive. That was me, versus going, well, let me give this a try. Like, what's the other side of the coin? Let me try taking 5-10 minutes to myself and being present and focus on my breathing, and all of a sudden put up this barrier to where I'm not thinking about the past anymore. And I could just think about right now in this current moment. And you'll see for yourself, if you actually are conscious and you do it and you put effort forth, you will see what we're talking about. And then you'll want to do it more. You'll want to experience it. Right. And that's not just the case for me, but I know that's for a lot of people. I'm saying that because I was coming from a standpoint of like, oh, this is stupid. Like it's phony, it's like meditations for, people that do yoga, right? And like light candles and incense and shit, and that was me. I was very just like aggressive, go. Everything's got to be fast paced. Like, oh, you'll get through it. You'll be able to work. You'll be able to work out of it, right? At some point. And a lot of times you can, but then you realize that you're your own bottleneck. You're the limitation in the process. Like you said, there's nothing external that all of a sudden is going to make you happy. Like if you keep running into this wall, eventually at some point you got to step back and go, okay, there's got to be a different way around this wall. I either got to go left, right. Maybe I can climb over it, but just stop running into that wall. That was me. I kept running into a wall until I was like, okay, there's got to be an easier way. It's almost, I did this a lot in sports too. I was very like aggressive, staying before and after practice to get the extra reps. I was all go until I started to get introduced to players that were better than me at higher levels. That almost made it look like effortless. I don't know if you've experienced this too, but like people that were just so finessey and like super good, and they had the ability to assess where they were weak at and distribute their energy very specifically, like to maximize their potential, to maximize their well-being, to maximize their happiness in the actual game that we were playing. And that was really cool to see. I was like, oh, there's another level to this. It's not just, be as aggressive and work as hard as you can and go, right? Like, so those of you that are like, man, I don't know if I believe in this stuff to find my happiness, or, another thing that comes to mind too is I used to be a big shoe guy. Like I worked for Nike for years, so I had access to a bunch of shoes, and I still love shoes. Don't get me wrong, but I haven't bought a new pair of shoes in over 2 years now. Whereas before, when I worked with Nike, dude, every week I was getting a pair of shoes, right? I have closets filled with brand new shoe boxes right now. And that was a thing where it's like, I was looking external for this thing that would in hopes it would make me happy, to get this quick dopamine hit, to get this new pair of shoes that was screwing me financially. But I didn't care because I was like fiending off this dopamine hit, right? Like I was looking for some external source to make me happy. And, I look at those shoes and I've sold a lot of them since, but it was something that I look back on in the past and I was like, man, I was really trying to find happiness with something that was external, that was something that wasn't inside. And I fell short despite how many pairs of shoes I bought and still have. It was short lived. And I don't know if you've experienced anything like that, but every time I look in my closet, I see that and I'm like, man, that was a lot of effort for very little reward, very short reward.
Isn't that kind of what we all do? Like with clothes anyway,
Yeah.
like, like at the end, like if you ever look, I've thought about this before, like you look at people, right? You look at other people and no matter what they're wearing, they look the same to you, right? They look the same and you don't think of anything of it, right? I'm not worried about what somebody looks like, right? It's like more or less what kind of person they are. And that's the thing, like, all of us, like, I'm sure you've done it before. I do it plenty. Where you stand in front of the mirror, you're like, no, this isn't going to work, right? Like, take this off, let's put something else on. I kind of look stupid in this thing, and like doing your hair up like perfectly, like just to look like it's all it's like a validation spring that we're trying to get from, right? We're trying to drink from this validation spring of maybe like if more people like me, like that's like kind of a little bit what it is, right? It's like maybe if I have these shoes or if I have this sweatshirt or if I buy more Lululemon, like, then, people will like me. And then like, that's going to make me happy, right? It's crazy. Like, it's so cool when you realize it though, like and then you can catch yourself because it's all about awareness, right? It's like, that's why presence is so key, is because if we're present, we can catch ourselves, right? And that's kind of what I want people to understand with the meditation. Like you said, I love that you dove into the fact of people probably thinking it's a little woo woo, it's a little hippie, it's a little whatever, right? Which, whatever. I've definitely been there before as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like exactly. Like I was very skeptical of this for a long period of time, but everything I've done has led me closer to this path because I understand like the key is with energy. Like it's just like I'm so deep into it right now, but everything's led me there because that's what it is. It's unlocking yourself. It's letting go, and it's being present enough to catch yourself doing the things that are bringing you away from the person that you're supposed to be, right? Like it's that the true purpose that we all have. We were all put on earth for a reason, right? Like, and I think that by doing these things and by forming these preferences and by, constantly looking external for happiness, that we're pulling ourselves away from that purpose. But then once we can center ourselves, we can practice being present, even if just for 5 minutes a day or less, doing it for 5 seconds throughout the day, during the day. It's going to help you relieve your stress. It's going to help you be more present. It's going to help you catch yourself doing these things that you're so frustrated and shameful when you do, right? Everybody has those things, these addictions, these different habits that they're not happy with. And they constantly wonder why, I know I shouldn't be doing this. There's barely any benefit to it, right? There is a benefit. You wouldn't do it if it wasn't a benefit, but there's like barely any benefit. Why? The pros just of quitting this, they far outweigh the cons, right? How many people listening to this have these habits? Like, I know I still have some habits that there's the pros of getting rid of this habit are so much more than the cons. And yet I still find myself doing it every week or every month or whatever. And it's once we can finally be present enough and be aware enough to shift that and to use our will to not do that shit. Cause, Michael, I'm talking about Michael Singer a lot cause I'm like deep into this fucking guy, but, he talks about addiction, right? Which I've struggled a lot with addiction. And he uses the example of like smoking cigarettes, right? And he's like, so many people, they struggle with quitting smoking, but really the only thing stopping you from quitting smoking is just throwing away your cigarettes and not ever picking up a cigarette again, right? And some people, it's like, that's so hard. And that's the urge, right? There's going to be this urge. You've created this habit, right? This addiction, you've created this habit through doing something over and over and over and over and over. You form these neural pathways, right? You're going to feel this urge come up like throughout the day to smoke, right? And maybe you fall into that urge, but you can use your will to not fall into that urge. And if you ask somebody like, okay, would you quit smoking or whatever, like, this or whatever, like you quit smoking without anything on the line, right? They're like, I probably couldn't do it. Right. But if you were like, I'll give you $10 million if you quit smoking, who's going to fucking quit smoking? Probably a lot of those fucking people are going to quit smoking because there's $10 million on the line. Right. And that just goes to show that you can choose to do it. Right. Like, and it's not going to be easy, but it's about, and I'm not trying to say that it's easy. Like, I'm coming from a place where I still have a lot of struggles that I'm working through, but now kind of knowing this, right? Knowing that I can push past that urge and I can push past that when that habit comes up and I'm like, I want to fucking do it so bad. Like, you can execute the will of somebody who gets $100 million at the end of this, right? Like that's, you can execute that level of will at any time, just a matter of doing it.
So awesome, man. And that's such a good perspective. It's crazy that it takes like that extreme for our body to kind of kick into gear, and our mind and whole well-being to kick into gear to actually accomplish things. To your point, that goes to prove that we have the ability to decide and make the choice, right? To your point, it's not going to be easy, and it's simple in nature on paper, but we have the ability to do it, which is crazy. Like, you're going to go through some withdrawals, and of course there's going to be these hurdles and obstacles, but at the end of the day, to answer the question, could you do it? Are you capable of quitting smoking? Yeah, you could cold turkey. People do it, and it's just whether or not it's crazy that something that hardcore has to be on the line. Another perspective, like the $10 million one, was like, if a gun was pointed to your family, it's the same thing, right? Like, if you don't quit and do this right now, and the rule is you can't smoke another cigarette for the rest of your life, and the gun's pointed at your family, like, you would be able to do it. It would suck, but you could do it, right? And so it just goes to show how powerful we can and we truly are, which is amazing. You talked a little bit about structure. I want to go back to something that you were talking about. You break up your morning and your afternoons, it sounds like, with some like 15 to 30 minute meditation sessions. I know, and this being on happiness, I know you've talked to me and told me about this before too, but I'd love for you to kind of explain if your routine has shifted, or if there's something that you do, and what do you think the importance of setting up your day and structure is? I know for you were putting the thing that you wanted to do or that made you happy, that you looked forward to, that you just enjoyed, which in your case is golf, and you kind of made time and like scheduled that in your day. Is that, I'd love for you to talk about that. And is that something that you suggest people do, is structure their day with kind of like some low hanging fruit or something that they really enjoy and keep in there? Because I know a lot of people, myself included, are like, again, that go mentality, like all grind, all work. But what have you found to be a benefit by placing things in there that do make you happy, that you do enjoy in your day? Has it made you more productive? The flow of your day improves? Like, talk about that.
Oh yeah, dude. Like, and at the start of the week, I try to do like Sundays. And this week I haven't golfed, but I fished with my dad this morning. We're fishing tomorrow. Like,
let's
go. Some other things in. Like, we're getting into the bass fishing a little bit more.
Let's go.
Well, we can. But it's been a game changer for me. I've probably been doing this for the last 3-ish months pretty consistently, at least, throughout the summer, right? I've been doing this consistently, where I do have things that I try to set up on a daily basis that they really, I love doing, right? I talked about, I'm always doing walks. I have reading. Reading continues to grow on me. I love like just diving into a good book. It's so, I don't know, it just makes me feel good, right? And then on the other side of things, like other fun things, hobbies, connecting with people, right? I think that's, like taking the time, even if it's just like, watching a Netflix movie with your family or something like that, or meeting up for coffee with a friend. But golf has been a huge thing throughout the summer, doing like 3 rounds a week, scheduling them in on Sunday. It's something to look forward to, right? When we have things to look forward to every day, like I've shown up in such a better way for these podcasts, for my clients, for my family, for my friends. You just show up better. And like, I think of it as for people to kind of get the idea of what it looks like to really lock in on the things that you love and to schedule them in, is think of it as like a vacation. Like, everybody's had it. I don't want to say everybody, but I'm sure plenty of people have had a vacation that was scheduled, right? Like, they scheduled this vacation and they're like, oh, it's going to be fucking awesome. The people up north, like, when you schedule that vacation for the South in the middle of the winter, right? Like I cannot wait for December. We're going down to Florida, right? Like it's going to be awesome.
No snow.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe you scheduled it out in long enough in advance that you don't think about it as much. But then that last month or two, right? That feeling of like, we're almost there. Like every week, you're like, we're almost at that vacation. You can have that feeling on a regular basis if you do the things that light you up on a regular basis. For people, maybe some people that's gardening, right? Going on in your garden, go in your garden for 5 minutes a day and just go fuck around out there and do your shit. Like, maybe it's like, singing, like do some fucking singing, whatever. Do it in your car. Like I know I love doing that. Like just doing little car karaoke.
Oh, hell yeah.
Maybe it's like woodwork. There's plenty of people, they're fucking awesome at woodwork. For you, I know it's fishing. Like and I know you love golf as well. But fishing, I know, is your number one. Like there's like find the things that you can do and be realistic, right? Like some of these things like golf, I'm probably not going to golf every day. It's really fucking expensive to do that. Like, and it's maybe not realistic, like for my schedule to take 2 to, probably 3-4 hours out of my day every day
it could be something small though, right?
Yeah, exactly. Something small. Like I said, reading, if you're like a woodwork person, you could take 15 minutes out of your day and do woodwork every day and just kind of, work on a project. There's a lot of different ways you can do it, but I've found that I show up in a lot better way. It increases my energy, both physically and then also that energy flow, that vibration, because when you're more excited, when you have more enthusiasm, that brings your energy up, right? It's going to increase your joy and bring that up. And so I've found amazing benefits from that. And one thing though, that I want to ask you about, because I know this is the thing that, it's rated like number one when it comes to happiness, right? Like all the studies say quality of relationships, right? The quality of relationships dictates your happiness. I know there's like an 85-year Harvard study that they have followed people in Boston. I think 724 participants. Half of them were undergrads at Harvard. So more privileged families, more privileged kids generally, you would think it's very expensive to go to Harvard. And then, half of them were in like a low income Boston like neighborhood, like less fortunate. And they followed these people and then they followed their families. It's been like 85 years since this thing started and they're continuing to follow the families. And they deemed that like far and away the quality of the relationships these people had dictated their level of happiness that they had. And so I would love for you to talk on that and like kind of the things that you do to try to connect on a more regular basis.
That's cool, man. What were the results or the outcomes of that? Do you know? Like
they're still doing it, but that's what they came up with. They like interviewed the families on a regular basis and the people and got certain sort of, I'm sure, subjective results from these people on like how they were feeling and how their level of joy and happiness was. And they just found by following these people that was the number one thing is like the people who connected with people on a regular basis, they invested in their relationships in their life. Those were the people that were by far and away the happiest.
Yeah, dude. And that's such a cool study and the time frame that it's gone into it, like 85 plus years, like, dude, that's amazing. But yeah, to answer your question, I think I'm very conscious and aware of that now. So in my life, more so than I ever have been. And what the thing that I do, I even talked about on the social media aspect as I'm scrolling, and this is no offense to anybody, but if they're not bettering me or I'm not learning something from them, it's just sheer entertainment, I'll unfollow the person, right? Or unfollow the account. And there's a lot that I have to filter through. So it's a never ending process. But as far as like the physical relationships, like in-person relationships or virtual, like how we're doing now with actual people, I ask myself 2 questions. What I try to assess after my conversation with somebody, do I feel zapped and do I feel drained and do I feel less better than after talking to them than when we first started? And also, does my gut and my intuition leading up to the interaction with this person not feel good? Does it feel like, oh man, I remember our last interaction, like I don't really want to talk to this person, like they just drain the life out of me. Like I'm very conscious and aware of that. Not to the point where I'm rude to anybody, but I will absolutely limit my time or interaction with somebody like that or a group of people like that. More so now than I ever have in my life because it's super important. On the flip side, there's things like this, like what you and I are doing, where I'm like, man, I'm chomping at the bit. I'm looking forward to it because my cup gets filled doing it, right? Not only dishing and giving value, but also getting it while I'm on here. And so the scenarios like that are the total opposite side of the spectrum. And I think being hyper aware of what sort of scenarios actually give you energy and which ones drain your energy. And man, I really, it's not that it could be so black and white, but the more you can kind of like filter and weed out your garden and take the weeds out and go, okay, that relationship, that interaction, that person, that group, that community, that environment is not conducive. It doesn't make me better. It feels like it's actually zapping my energy and it takes it away. Man, by all means, I either limit it extremely, or if in some scenarios, if I have no problem with it, I've gotten a lot better at this, is just completely cut it off. Right. So, I actually want to get a new phone number. I've been meaning to do this. I want to get a new phone number because I've had the same phone number since I've had a cell phone in high school, you know? So there's people that I know off the top of my head, memorize my phone number from high school. So if you guys are listening to this, I know you guys still have my phone number. And it's just one of those things where I was like, I'd rather just like get a clean, fresh slate and like be totally in control and like focus on people who I feel like should have contact to me, or like I want to allow contact with them in interactions. Because yeah, man, I think it's being aware of those interactions and those relationships. Because look, if you're not and you just allow things to happen, here's the thing that comes up in my head is, at the end of the day, you're looking yourself in the mirror and you go, when is it going to be enough that you're actually just going to either sever that relationship, or you're going to limit it? Like, how many more times are you going to interact with that person, with that community, with that environment, with those people? Like, how much more energy do you want zapped from you on a daily basis on those interactions? How many more times do you want to not look forward to those interactions? Like, you know, and that's a conversation I have with myself until you just go, enough's enough. Like, and you just kind of cut the cord, right? So I've got a lot better at that. And again, it's nothing against those people or individuals or community. It just, I'm here to fill my cup and selfishly, right? And I want to do the same for others who actually enjoy my company and look forward to that. Not a person, community, or group of people that I feel like is, going to feel like I'm being taken advantage of, or I'm just completely being drained by interacting with them or being around them. So hopefully that makes sense, but I don't know if you experience that.
No, for sure, man. I think that's huge, being able to either limit or eliminate people that are not filling your cup. And, you know, if that's family, we've talked about this before, having conversations, and maybe you got to have a really fucking hard conversation. If it's this certain person, they're really draining you, like we don't want to be around that kind of shit, right? Like, I think that's huge, like protecting your mental space and just your positivity is so huge. And that's why, you know, having gratitude and doing, you know, trying to be present and filling up your cup by doing the things that you enjoy and spending the time with the people you enjoy is so important when it comes to happiness and fulfillment in life. And I love that. And like, one thing I also do when it comes to like connection and quality relationships, because as you know, I've been digging a lot into happiness. That's kind of been almost, it feels like my life's turning towards like that as like my purpose, to like kind of figure this out for myself so I can help other people experience like joy on a really regular basis. Like, I just know that that's just always been the underlying thing with all the things I've chased. And so I'm just so interested in just what it takes to get there. And, you know, being able to be 29 years old and figure that out is a gift. And being able to try to do that, right? Like, just like, what can I do to do this? Like, what are the pieces of it, right? Like, what are the pieces that I could put together for somebody that, you know what, like, this is the key to more joy and happiness in your life. Like, this is the key to keeping it. Because I think that's the thing that people struggle with. But one of the things that I've done is I've actually listed out a list of people that I want to like invest in relationship wise, like that I want to stay in touch with, that I want to check in with, that I'm, you know, that fill my cup up, right?
Yeah.
And I reach out to these people on a regular basis throughout the week, right? I reach out to people. I'll send them like a video message. For me and you, we obviously meet every week. Like, I think of this as investing in the relationship. I think of our chats as investing in each other's relationship, right? Like with Nick, we have our 11 a.m. Central call every Thursday. Like, I think of that as that. I have calls with other coaches that are strictly just to talk. Like, I have those throughout the week. And that is another thing. It's like, it's surrounding yourself with the people you want to surround yourself and checking in with the people that you want to check in with. You know, it may seem uncomfortable, to send like a video message or like a voice message, like, hey, like, thinking of you, grateful for you. Like just wanted to check in, see how you're doing, and just let you know that I'm always here for you. Something as simple as that. Like, some people it can be scary to do that, but I know that for me, I was like uncomfortable doing it right away, but I was like, fuck it. Like, I'm going to invest in these relationships. The data tells us that connection is huge. And I think that anybody who's been isolated, like myself, like my default is when I don't feel good to isolate, to not talk to people, to go inside. And I found that that does not work.
Yeah.
And so, doing the opposite and talking with people and developing better relationships. And you can do that a number of different ways, right? Zooms, FaceTimes, video or voice messages, text messages, calls, like a million different ways to do it, right? And in person's the best. If you're around people, if you like people that you're around, fucking schedule a weekly coffee thing, even if just for an hour, like an hour out of like, what is that? An hour out of 100, like 168 hours in the week or some shit like that. Like an hour out of that is insane, right? It's such a small amount, but it goes such a long way to have these connections and to meet up with people on a regular basis.
Which, by the way, you look at that hour too, and like how much you can get out of that hour, how much that's going to fill your cup just by doing it. It's not like taking an hour away from you or taking it out of your schedule. It's actually an hour contributing to your happiness, to filling your cup. So I would encourage people to look at it like this. Again, those of you that are thinking like, I don't know about what they're talking about. I'm just going to keep going through life. And like, there's some days that are going to be shitty and there's some that are going to be good. And it's like, well, you actually have more control than that. Cause I was in that boat too. That's what I thought. I was like, man, we're just going to, hopefully the percentages are going to be higher on the happy days and then lower on the shitty days. Right. And it's like, as soon as you understand how much control you actually do have just by deciding, and being intentional and being present, I think this whole pod is being around and centered around presence and happiness, because that's what it is. That's truly what it is. And when you can do that, I think most people underestimate how much control they actually do have when it comes to their happiness. So I would encourage people to try at least one of the things that we talked to today. I know it sounds like it might be airy fairy, way out there, woo woo, but just try it. What's the other side of the coin, right? You just don't, and you keep going through the motions. So that would be my advice to people, is give it a try. I was in your shoes. I know exactly how you feel if you are feeling that way, but man, it's a beautiful thing when you understand how much intentionality and control you have, when you can start filtering some of these weeds out that are pulling you down, that are putting holes in your energy cup. It's like you can patch some of those holes up. And when you do that, all of a sudden your cup starts to fill more. And then in turn, which everybody wants to do, especially parents, I want to be there for my family and provide for my kids and be there for my husband and be there for my wife. It's like, if your cup is being completely drained, how do you expect to distribute to them? What sort of level could you distribute when it comes to happiness if you actually patch those holes up, cut off and sever the things that don't serve you, that actually drain your energy so you can be as full as you can be? And I promise you, you'll show up as a better person, a better husband, a better wife, a better individual, a better coworker, a better best friend, a better colleague, and shit, you'll dominate in levels that you didn't even think you were capable of when you do that. Learning to say no is like a real superpower. And that's one thing I practice with my clients is you're not a bad person if you tell somebody no, something, a circumstance, a person, a scenario that doesn't serve you. You can say no and be a phenomenal, great person. You're actually going to be a better person for saying no. It might be tough. There's going to be some anxiousness and uneasiness feeling leading up to that scenario. But I promise you, when you do, there's going to be a huge weight lifted off your shoulders. And you're like, damn, I'm glad I did that. I'm a lot happier since I did that. So,
oh, dude, gold. I think that one thing I would end with is just that I think a lot of the stuff we talked about today, if you go through this work, what you'll find is that I think it slowly diminishes the ego, if that makes sense. Like, the ego runs our life, right? And I think of the ego as like our mind, which is kind of bullshit. A lot of this shit is not right? It's not right. But I think that the work that we're talking about here raises your energy, starts to diminish your ego, and you start to become a better person. And the reason I say that is I've been doing this for a little while, and I've been, doing a lot of the stuff that we talked about on this, but also I've been letting go for, at least a week now. I've been trying to do a version of that for a while. And now I've kind of just fully embodied that just purpose of letting go on a daily basis of all these parts of myself that hold me back. And what I've realized is that I've started to become naturally a better person. Picking up trash on the side of the road. Never fucking done that in my life.
I just did that, bro. I literally just did that yesterday. And that's so funny you said that, because I had a piece of tape stuck to my shoe, right? I'm walking, long ass piece of tape. It's like dragging, making noise. And I'm like, what the hell? I look down, I rip the tape off my shoe and I just keep walking, right? I'm like, oh, I didn't. And then I'm battling with this inner voice, right? That's like, man, go throw that out. Like that. I know you didn't put that there, but you stepped on that. You dragged it another 3 feet with you. You pulled it off your shoe and you left it there.
Yeah.
And I kept walking and I was justifying like, man, you're too far from it now. You're 10, 15 yards away from it now. You might as well just keep walking. And then the other part of me is like, no, go pick that shit up. So I walked another like 5 yards. And then finally I turned around and I went and I threw it out, man, because it would kill me if I didn't. That's so funny you said that. Like that literally just happened to me yesterday.
Dude, that's awesome. And that's like, I never did that in my life.
No.
Never done that in my life, but I actually bring a bag on my walks now and I pick up shit on the side of the road.
Nice.
And nice. I'm just like, I don't know why. Like I had this thing today where there was something in the gap and I was like, this is recycling, isn't it? You know, like this bag is recycling. And I took it out of I don't know what is going on, but I think it's just these small shifts are being made as I kind of release some of these things within me to make room for more of like a better version of me. I don't know.
Dude,
but
happy people are good people, man.
It's awesome, right? Like, but it's weird. It's like, oh, I just 2 weeks ago, randomly, I started picking up garbage on the side of the road, and I was like, oh, and then I started bringing bags on my walks. Because I was like, this is actually like, it feels good to clean up the road, and you know, there's always so cool fucking shit there.
It's so cool. The happier you are, the better person you become too, right? You just become a good person. You can the quality of which you walk this earth with also improves just by you being happier. You'll start to do just random acts of kindness, just weird stuff that when you're caught up in the race that everybody else is, you don't even think about. And it doesn't happen like in a snap, but you'll start to notice like awareness around little things like that. You'll start to maybe strike up a conversation with somebody that you never would have at the grocery store, right? And I know that's something huge that you pride yourself into and you really work on. You might help somebody like go put their grocery cart back if you can tell it's like I saw like an older lady and she was struggling just to put her groceries in her car. I'm like, let alone it's going to take her 5 minutes to go put a cart back if she even tries to, right? So go grab her cart, go put it back. Like just little things that nobody's ever going to see, right? Or nobody's ever going to notice, but you just do them out of the act of being a happy and a good person. And those things, when you're engulfed and you're kind of just going through the motions of life and like life is what it is, shitty things happen to me on a daily basis, I have no control, and you're kind of in that loop, man, there's a whole other side to it that you can just get out of. So there's a whole nother other side to the coin that I wish everybody can experience, because everybody has the opportunity to do it. So I hope people at least hear this. And if you are caught in that cycle, try and apply one of the things that we talked about today and see if your life improves, your happiness even gets a degree better. And hopefully that'll at least give you the momentum to keep things rolling in the right direction.
I love it, dude. And last thing I'd say is just slow down. You know, I think that's a huge thing. You know, just slow down. You know, we're all in this big rush. There's no rush. No fucking rush. And honestly, when you rush, less shit gets done anyway. I found like when I slow down, like you notice shit a little bit more. You can experience life in the way it's supposed to be experienced. So that's the last thing I'd say. But man, I really enjoyed this pod, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. Like Matt said, like if you can take just one thing from this and apply it to your life and just see how it works, give it a shot. Like, what are you out, right? I know this podcast is about the thing that you want, right? This is about the thing that you want. We listed out a bunch of stuff you can do. Try something out. Try a few of them out. Give it a shot and let us know if it helped you experience more joy and happiness on a regular basis. But other than that, we appreciate you so much taking the time to watch this, to listen to this every week. If it helped you out, please make sure you like, subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. send this to a friend. If somebody's really wanting to experience happiness, if you really enjoyed this, send this to a friend. It really helps us out, and hopefully it can help them out as well. So thank you so much, and we'll be talking to you soon.